Alright, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and talk about CADing up some of our most common extrusion used on the robot. It is our Length VersaFrame. We have a drawing of the thick VersaFrame, and we have a drawing of the thin VersaFrame, or if we go to the stock website, you can see a picture of the frame there, or another picture of the thick frame here. Now, it should be noted that about 2 years ago, the VersaFrames actually changed the way it's formatted. So previously there were no holes on the top and only holes on the side for the thick VersaFrame, and the thin VersaFrame offset the holes on the top and the sides by 1/2 inch. At this point, if you look at the way it's sold and the way it's made, all of the holes are even between the top and the sides, and for example, this piece of extrusion is the thick kind, and it is the holes are even. Same with the holes in the thin kind here. So that's a change that's happened, and the drawings and pictures are not up to date on the website. So when we CAD it up, that's why we're going to do it a little bit different than the drawings and the pictures. So first off, we're going to go into Fusion. We're going to open our Untitled example, and the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and give this extrusion a name. I'm going to go into here, and in this case I want to grab and say what kind of VersaFrame it is. So it's going to be the thick kind, which is 100 thou. Go ahead and copy this, and in this case we're going to go ahead and do a 28-inch piece. So I go into Fusion, I'm going to click Save, and now I'm going to put 28 inches VersaFrame, 1 by 1 by 100 thousandths. So then hit Save. Once that's saved, I'm going to go ahead and start my sketch. Click on Create Sketch and click the plane. From there, I will go to my 2-point rectangular tool, click on the origin, move up and to the right, and then I'm going to type 1 tab 1, setting the dimension to 1 inch for each, and hit enter. To create the inside frame of that shape, I will use my offset tool, click on the square itself, then pull inward, and now I can set my value here to be -0.1, and then hit enter. And now I have 2 squares. And now I've finished my sketch. Hit E for extrude. Click on the edge of the square. Now I'm going to pull this towards me. That highlights this value. And I'm going to go ahead and type 28 and hit enter. Now that I've created my extrusion, I need to add the holes. I'm going to start at the end that's near the origin, so to do that I'll spin around using the view cube. Now that I've got the origin in view, I'm going to go ahead and click my hole tool. Then I'm going to click on the top face, and I'm going to drag a hole into near position. Previously I've done these holes, so if you take a look, I've already got 0.163 inches for my diameter, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that. That number comes from the drawing, so if we look at the drawings themselves, you can see all holes are 1.63 inches, and then the offset is going to be 1/2 inch from the edge, both the side and the end. So I'll go back to my Fusion, and now that I have the hole size, I'm going to go ahead and click to my selection. Oh, I have messed this up. Click, drag the hole. That changes the size. So in this case, I have to retype 0.163 and then tab. And now I'm going to drag this over, and I'm going to zoom in, and I want to set my reference positions. So if I click on the center and I click on the side, this is going to be 0.5. then I will go ahead and do the second selection, which be the hole and this edge, and do 0.5. And now I'm going to just hit enter. And that automatically puts the hole through. Now in this case, the hole is going through both sides. But one thing you might note, if you're thinking about changing this extrusion at all, you might consider changing the way that you dimension this. Instead of extending just a distance of 1 inch, I can go ahead and change this to all, and that way if I change the size of my extrusion, the hole will still go through all the way. And go ahead and click OK. Now I'm going to add another hole, and I'm going to put it on the side this time. Drag that over, go ahead and reference it to the edge, 0.5, tab, then click on it again, go to the edge, 0.5, and then hit enter. So now I have the 2 holes in the extrusion. Both of them go through. And now I'm going to go ahead and use my pattern tool, and I'm going to pattern it down the length. So in this case, I will change this pattern type to feature. If it's defaulted to faces or bodies, I'm going to go ahead and go to feature. That way I can click on the 2 holes. And now those 2 features are selected. I'm going to click my direction. It's going to propagate down the edge, so I select that. Now in this case, I want it to go the length of the bar minus ½ inch, so 27 inches. And then I want a quantity of 28 holes. So that ends up with a hole every inch. And then I'll go ahead and click OK. And I should see those holes all throughout. If I want to check about the spacing and alignment, I'm going to go ahead and go my top view, then zoom in over by the origin. And because these grid points are at 1 inch for each one, or ½ inch for each one, then you can see that it actually lines up as a kind of center point for each of the holes. That's how I can quickly check visually that it is aligned properly. So now that I've created my extrusion, I can go ahead and go back to my home view. It looks good, and so I'm going to go ahead and hit save and give it a name like 28 with holes. All right, then click OK. And now I've got version 1 of my extrusion. And it clicks to version 2 once it's saved, and I have this piece. So now, if we take a look, say we've got this 28-inch piece, but now let's go ahead and create a piece that is 28 but thin, so only 40 thou on the wall thickness. So I go back to Fusion, and in this case, I can make a copy of this piece. So I'm going to right-click here, pick Copy. Then I'm going to copy it to the same folder in this case. Click Copy again. Now, you'll notice that my version 2 is still up. Even though it creates another version, it doesn't automatically open that. So in this case, first thing I'm going to do is right-click on this new version while I can still tell which one it is. Notice that it's V1, whereas my original is V2. So I right-click here. I'm going to rename this, and then I'm going to change from 100 thou to 40 thou, or 0.4 in this case, and then hit enter. Now I will double click on that file. That opens up the new extrusion, and in this case I'm going to go back to my original sketch, double click on that. It opens up the sketch. I'm going to zoom in, double click on the dimension here, change it from minus 100 thou to minus 40 thou, and hit enter. So that wall is a lot thinner, and then I'm going to finish the sketch. And now if I go to the home position, it is nice and thin. Everything looks good. All the rest of the features are maintained. And so I can go ahead and save this. And I'll just say that I changed it to thin. Click OK. Now I have the base models or base components for my chassis. In this case, I've got the thick and the thin. Now the last thing I want to go over is how to change the length of this bar for the different pieces. So we've got this 04. We're going to go ahead and make keep the thin version, but make a much shorter bar. So the first thing, again, I'm going to right click and then make a copy. Click OK because it's in the same project. And then I'm going to right click on the new file, say rename. In this case, we're going to change from 28 inches. Let's go down to like 10.5. So 10.5 inches and hit enter. Now I'm going to open that new file since I'm still in the old two files there. So I double click that. And once it's open, I can see the name up at the top. So now I want to make this just 10.5 inches. It's currently 28. And so the simplest way for me to do this is to go to our modify and do our press pull, or I can just hit the letter Q and that gives me the press pull tool. If I zoom in to the edge, I can select the edge of the extrusion, click on it once. That pops up and tells me what the length is currently, 28 inches. And so I'm going to go ahead and change it to 10.5 and hit enter. Double click on the track roller ball or the scroll wheel. And then I have my 10.5 inch piece extruded. It cuts through that hole, the half circle, and everything's finished with that. So I can go ahead and hit save. In this case, I'll say now 10.5. Click OK. And in this case, I now have 3 pieces of extrusion for whatever I'm about to build. And so I've got my thick frame, which can be seen here, the thicker walls. I have my 28 inch piece thin frame. So in this case, the thin walls there. And then I have a thin 10.5 inch short piece. And then I can use those and I can keep adding new pieces and adjusting those lengths. And it all works pretty well. That's all I got for today. Have a good one.